Thank you for tuning in to the World Builder's Anvil, Season 2, Episode 6. The 5 things you need to start world building.
Don't know where to start building your fantasy world?
Do you need more? Does it make sense?
Forget any worries and become a crafter of imagination.
This is the place where we will prime your mind.
Now, it's time to heat up the forge.
Break out the mithril ingots and hammer.
Welcome to the World Builder's Anvil. I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And I'm Michael Miller.
Let's sup from the milk of Java and build. Welcome back. Relaxed as always. My name is Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And with my hands completely visible, I am Michael Miller.
Yes. Here with quite visible hands, we are going to talk about some world building today.
Well, Jeff and I were talking about a superhero who had his only power was invisible hands. Yes. We don't see how that's a benefit.
We don't get it.
Our hands are
work out.
But ours are visible. We have visible hands. So I would think being completely invisible would be a benefit. And also, can I throw something back? Speaking of
invisible hands?
No, not invisible hands. Magic systems. Remember it was like 1 or 2 episodes ago. I was talking about coming up with a magic system where the cost was memory.
I kind of fell asleep in that one.
No. I know that you remember this. Seriously, yes. I need you to remember this. So I'm not kidding. Like your reference immediately, you thought of Johnny Mnemonic. Mm-hmm. Not 3 or 4 days later, I don't know how Sarah ended up getting there, but she was on Netflix and just, bored and watching things. And she started watching The Never-Ending Story 2. And
I don't remember that one.
I've never seen it before. So
I saw it. I'm pretty sure.
I never saw it before. It's not that good. So we sat down and we sat down and we watched it. But here's the thing. He makes wishes and the evil character come up with a way for every time he makes a wish, it steals a memory.
Oh, okay.
So he's making a wish. And it is,
cost of a memory,
it is.
I'm assuming the
thing is silly though is like he's got no imagination. The wishes he makes are stupid. Like it's it's not a good movie. Yeah. But
it's a bad movie.
But here I am. I'm like, okay, literally 3-4 days ago, I was talking about a magic system where the cost of power was your memories, and then I watched this that it's almost the identical concept, and I'm like, okay, see, there's nothing original in the world. There you go.
Boy, I was on the road to the Never-Ending Story. But a part 2, unfortunately.
Yeah, just watch the first one, guys. And I believe there's a third one out there. I believe
there was 2. Yeah.
And
it's like the third Karate Kid. People have forgotten about it.
Yeah, it's not on Netflix, but I think I need to search it out just to be complete with it. So, anyway. So before we get going on the subject today, I would like to do the shout outs. I've been meaning to do this since we started season 2. I had intended to do shout outs in the very first episode of season 2, and every episode since we've gotten started the recording and I just didn't have the names prepped. So I took the time today. So thank you for joining the closed Facebook group, the Fantasy World Builders Undercroft, which you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/Undercroft. And it's going to, when you try to join, it's going to ask you 3 questions. We just require that you answer those questions. Most of the answers don't really matter, but we're trying to sort out bots from real people and people who are just going to spam us with promotional information and what have you. Pretty much everybody's welcome. So just answer the questions. It does ask for your email address. We don't need it, but do answer the question. And honestly, we love it when you guys write something funny for the answers. So if you want to do that, that'd be great too. So
the irony was, and this is how much I love the members, is I used to have software that could grab that question out and put it into our email list. They changed the privacy policy to become disturbing. Like I was like, no way. And I actually canceled the software. I haven't updated the question yet. So at some point I'm going to update the questions because I think you can actually automate the process now, which is kind of ironic that you're trying to get rid of bots by adding a bot. But we'll go see. But yes.
At the point of this recording, I very excitedly am announcing that we have 344 members in the closed Facebook group, which is so cool.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So big shout outs to new members. Those new members are the following: Joey, Jessica, DRP, Roland, Steven, John, Taylor, Jared, Cassie. I'm going to go with Per. It's PER. L, it's a capital EL. Jasmine, Mike, I'm so sorry. I'm going to butcher this name. Olamide or Olamide, maybe? Olamide? I'm not
Please
sure.
write in and let us. Well, I guess voice in somehow. And let us know.
Either way,
I've never
welcome.
seen that name either. So
Christina, Tanner, Olandra or Alandra, maybe Alandra, Ken, Matthew, Rebecca, Caleb, Hannah, Dean. We have 2 pages that joined, Garda Manager and Sears Series, and finally Asher. So thank you guys for joining the closed Facebook group, and let's get on with the show.
On the 5 things to start world building, and the idea is oftentimes one of the things that holds people back from world building is you keep finding something else you need to do first. And I see this all the time for when people are trying to do something new, or something that they're fearful of doing. So one of the things I see people do a lot of times is I see that they whenever they're doing something new, something original, they will actually try and come up with excuses on why not to do it. And one of the common ways is like, well, I need this first and that first and this first. Like at Bookkeeper Training School, we teach people how to do bookkeeping and like literally how you set up your business, like step by step all the way through. But people will be like, oh, but we need to do this first. I'm like, no, it's not in the steps. Don't do it yet. I'm like, if you go through the steps, you'll start getting clients, and then you can actually have money to get people to do certain things for you, or you have time to start adding those other things and you don't need them to start. But people come up with all of these different things. And so coming back to the last episode 5, we talked about sort of my top-down methodology. Especially if you're following that, there's really only 5 things you need to get started. And the first and the most important to me is where you're going to store it. I've done different things in the past. Scrivener is pretty cool. Evernote, I'm starting to like Evernote more because I can kind of treat it like a database. A
database. Welcome to my database. No, I'm calling it a database from now on. Love it.
I love Office 365. So I use that, and I punish everyone around me, make them use it too.
I wouldn't know what that's like just yet, but I will very soon.
Google Docs or G Suite or whatever they're calling that now. Google has their own version too, where they have like document online stuff. Mm-hmm. These are all good. I love, and I always have a notebook with me, and friction pens are the best. For me, one of the best inventions of the past 10 years.
Friction pens?
Those are the pens that erase under heat.
Okay.
So essentially,
are you talking about like the Rocket Notebook, like stuff like that?
Well, the Rocket Notebook it utilizes it to where you can, take pictures and get it into storage faster, which is kind of cool.
But it does also erase with heat, though, is my point.
And essentially, if you heat up the ink, typically in a microwave is the quick way to do it, it will actually erase notebooks. So I love using these pens. I use these pens all the time. I have several different colors of them. I love notebooks. Rocket Notebook is pretty cool as a notebook device because there's icons on the page. And if you circle the icon and you take a picture through the Rocket app, it will actually put it up to your Google Drive or wherever you store things into the correct folder to help you pre-organize things. So that's a kind of a cool way to take it to the next level, I guess. But really, I just love like just your basic composition notebooks. But you just need a place to store it, and it doesn't need to be the final place. You need a place, just to get your ideas down. Really, that's it, right?
I am super old-fashioned. I still love Microsoft Word.
I think we've called Michael a Luddite in my house.
You did just the other day.
Michael stopped by at a socially distanced way, in a COVID-friendly way, to say hello. And my wife and I were teasing him and calling him a Luddite. And for that, I deeply feel sorrow.
I'm not sure. Were you calling me that because of how I was it a data storage thing? because
I think it was OneDrive versus external drive.
Right, which we were literally just talking about not 10 minutes ago again. And I think you also called me a Luddite. Yes, yeah.
And I was trying to make your life easier. Bring it in.
Guys, go to the closed Facebook group and please tell me what you think. I am kind of old school and I don't like all my information out there. So for me, I don't like using the cloud. I intend to.
That's the guy who tells all of his secrets on a podcast.
Not all of them. But my point is that, like, with my new, I have some new gear that I'll be setting up hopefully in the next few days. It should make recording the show a lot easier, and I do not intend to save all of my stuff onto the cloud. I only want to put the show on the cloud. All my personal stuff or my writing or anything, I just want to keep that on my PC and on my backup drive. Like I don't want it out there.
Yours, and no one has access to that.
I don't want it out there.
Okay.
I realize that the NSA sees everything I do, and I'm probably on 57 watch lists.
At this point, you probably don't even really own the hard drives anymore that we buy. So I'm sure it's all
licensed and yeah.
If you can store it electronically, assume that someone has access to it.
That's a good point. Well, not if I store it and then unplug the thing.
Oh, like you can unplug your phone. Okay.
No, I'm talking about my backup drive. I can save onto the backup drive and then disconnect it, and no one can get to it.
Of course not. Nothing to worry about. Okay.
I'm going back to notebooks. It's all going to be notebooks.
I'm getting pieces of stone and a chisel.
There's going to be just stacks of composition notebooks everywhere, and no one's going to know anything. When I die, it's going to be a Collier mansion in my home.
Wait, hold on. I have to go through my rock pile.
I have that. Wait, give me a minute. It's a very complicated sorting system.
Here's my table of content stone.
This room is just financial. That room is creative writing.
And the irony is, in like 3,000 years, they're going to find the ruins of Michael's home, and they're going to assume it's a religious site.
Look at all these tomes.
This must have been a.
This man was a collector. He was clearly some sort of religious hierarch.
This is the first evidence there might have been a civilization in North America. 477 Gaziggle. Oh.
All right. So the second one is finding your frames.
Mm-hmm. And we'll make this real simple. There is other episodes about it, and I don't remember the number. Good, Jeffrey. And Googling's hard. Should
have wrote a note on this one.
Googled that one, yeah.
We have talked about the framework world building perspective a bunch of times. If you're new to the show, we will talk about it again. So yeah. Jeff can briefly explain.
By the time this comes out, hopefully I will have found the episode and put it in the show notes. So if you go to guardduel.com and go to season 2, episode 6, you should be able to easily find a link to this, or just Google guardduel.com and frames. But the idea is, a frame is, think of the way you want people to view your world, and or view what you're doing in the world, because the illusion of it being real is from a perspective that you want people to see it from.
Yeah.
If they look at any world from a different direction, it looks like paper and made up stuff. But if you look the right way, Middle Earth looks like Middle Earth.
Yeah. The basic gist is, people are going to come up with their own perspectives on a given thing that you write, but you deliver it to them in a perspective. So when we say find your frame, we're saying find the perspective that you're going to use approaching and delivering your material.
And then, so 3 is identify deviations. And the thing is, if you go about building your world, not so much this is an original thing. It's not. It can't be. Think of it as in, how is it different than the world you live in? Is it a different technology level? Is it more advanced? Is it less advanced? Do they use magic? That would be a deviation, unless the world you live in has magic. Mine does not.
In which case, please tell us how you got this show.
Yeah, yes, please.
And tell us how we get to your world.
Please teach us. We want magic. But identify what the differences are. Those are the things you need to focus on and explain to people. The things where it's the same, if everyone has English surnames, you don't have to explain the naming system. People who speak English know that. So it's like, deviate it from the world you live in, and start there, because that will get you to the really important, the meat of what you need to describe to people, whether it's a completely new country, a completely new world. The more differences there are, the more it takes to get there. So first, find your storage, find your frames. Then 3, you identify those deviations. And then 4 is create a world building inventory. And the thing is, you already have nuggets in there that you're going to use for this. Maybe it's an ancient culture that you found interesting and you what if'd it. Maybe it's you've come up with the magic system playing a role-playing game and you want to create a world around it and come up with your own thing based off of your magic system. What are those nuggets of information, characters that you love that you need in your world? Even if they're not in their final form, make a list of them and go, here are the ideas that I know I want to get in there somehow.
And this inventory concept also can lead you to the bottom up world building method, which
this works for either way. Yeah.
It works for either way, but I find, because I'm a bottom up thinker, so for me, the inventory is a gateway to power. It is an avenue to creation. So you say, okay, well, I know I want mythical races. I know I want it to be in a fictional Earth, like it's actually Earth, but it's my version. And I know, like, I want it to be about, a prince. So
and you're gonna use the inventory to keep drilling down till you find that thing where you go, aha,
exactly.
That's the thing that I care about the most. Mm-hmm. That's the center of the world. Where for me, I kind of have these like pictures, and they might be at a specific detail or not. Because I do hybrid. I mainly do top down, but sometimes like I want this result. This character will exist. And so I do have some of those as well too.
And the inventory can be something that you generate at the point of going through this list of 5. Like you may not have anything you probably do have some things that get to fall into the inventory, but maybe you don't. Maybe you're just like, I want to start a new world and that's all I got. Well, then generate some things. Yeah.
And it goes, they could also just be inspirations, and a lot of mine are inspirations. So you have inventory. Like I said, it might not be anywhere close to a finished detail, but you have things in your little noggin rattling around that you at least want to explore. And sometimes maybe later on, it's not a final list. You're not forced to use them. You might go, all right, this was a funny concept, but maybe I just drop it from here. Or, it's kind of like when you write, stories and you're like, I had like 3 great chapters that just make no sense to the story and they're cool. And I'm just going to bury them.
We should talk about that again sometime soon too. The concept of knowing what to let go of. Like I could totally get into a tangent on that right now, but I'm going to let it go.
We're going to let it go. Yeah. Because we're in the meta.
We are. Well, that will get us into the meta. Yeah. All right. So number 5 is creating a project for your world.
Yes.
So by listing this, Jeff, do you mean to have a project goal before you start all the other things? Like I'm going to have a short story or I want it to be about this character or I want to write a novel.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's tightly coupled with your frame, but it's like some end result you want to do to share it. Maybe it's with your kids. Maybe it's with a role-playing table. Maybe it's a book. Maybe it's long form. Maybe it's cooperative, but have a goal, because if you have a goal of how you want to use your world and a frame the way you want to present it, it makes building it possible. Otherwise, you're going to wiggle around forever, never finishing the world because you don't really know why you're making it.
That's a great point.
But yeah, that's exactly. It's really, you could just call it a goal. I like to think of it as a project because it's my IT background, probably.
No, I like that. I think project's a great word choice, because it might be, I'm just going to make a backstory for a character for a role-playing game. To do that, I'm going to make a small world.
And I need a lot less stuff.
But I need a lot less stuff to do that. Yeah. Or I'm going to write a short story, in which case I'm going to need more. Or maybe I'm going to make a graphic novel, in which case I'm going to need a lot more.
If you're stuck on the frame or the project, you those two are really tightly coupled. So and they need to make sense together. Like my frame is, I want the entire universe to talk about one character named Bob.
Kind of tough.
It's like, maybe come up with enough to create Bob, the framework elements to create Bob, and your outline of Bob, and then go, okay, then come up with a new project. Because, and how's it fit within the frame? Or maybe the frame needs to change for the next project. So
well, and see, like, but even just your example contradicts your 5 things, so in the way that your 5 things should prevent you from running into that problem, right? Like if you say, okay, well, I got Bob and I'm going to need the whole universe. Well, no, because if your second thing is find your frame. So if you know your frame, you don't need the whole universe.
But
you can just
check.
Well, my point is that's a great, like, I really like this list because these 5 things can prevent you from falling into very easy pitfalls of the early creation stages.
Exactly. And that's the point, right? And what you point out there was exactly the reason why you have both of them in there. Those two specifically have to address each other. The inventory, sometimes you throw things out because you can't see how it fits. Or you keep pushing to the side and go, I'll get back to that detail later. I'll get back to that inspiration later. And sometimes it'll just hit you, probably when you're taking a shower in the morning.
Keep the Rocket Notebook there.
Yeah. Keep the Rocket Notebook in the shower with you.
There are waterproof Rocket Notebooks.
There are? Oh,
I think so. I might be making that up.
But get one of those.
Get one, make one. Laminate your Rocket Notebook.
All right. But yeah, follow those 5 steps. It's, where are you going to store it? What's your frame? Identify the deviations between what you know and really what your audience knows ultimately. Create your inventory, the tidbits that you have with you going into it, and then create a project, something to do with it. It gives you a purpose, and that helps you flesh out all of the details. So it's a double check against the first 4, really. And then, but remember, as you're going through this, there is the Electrum rule of world building. Remember, every rule has an exception.
Bum.
So you have these 5 rules here. Ignore all of them if you need to, at your own peril. But ignore them if you need to. But don't be afraid. Sometimes it's like I said, if something doesn't fit, if it doesn't feel right, make it fit. Take a hammer. A hammer will fit a PC into a phone. It will. It'll make it small enough if you hit it enough. Might not work.
Don't hit my PC.
Not my PC.
Not my PC. Not my phone.
Not my PC.
Not my phone either.
Because if we hashtag it, then it will prevent it from really happening in the real world. So pound, not my PC. Okay. And then also remember rule 6.
There is no rule 6.
Very good. Yes, thank you very much. And so as you get to it, just follow the 5 steps. They're simple. If you find yourself, caught up in these 5 steps, and you want to add more and you need a voice of reason, stay away from me. But if you want my voice to help you out, go to facebook.com/groups/Undercroft and join. Fill out those 3 questions. Michael and I at some point will probably remember to announce your name here.
Might be a few episodes from now.
It might be a few episodes. It depends on how life goes. Maybe in 2021 will be better.
I doubt it.
But yeah, we can't blame 2021.
We've settled into a pretty steady rhythm here. we're creatures of habit and pattern.
And then also remember my new rule 7 of world building, which is rule 6 has no exceptions.
Okay.
That is your rule building task today, is to make that little nugget work in your brain.
Okay. So the real world task, if you haven't caught on, relax with a little Monty Python.
Yes.
Go watch some fun stuff.
That is a very,
get some laughs on.
I made it a little bit less surreal. I think in the show notes I gave Michael, I said, rule 1, 3, 5 are, every rule has no exception. But I changed it to the Electrum rule because I was kind of golden rule. But I'm like, that's been used. And platinum's a little too obvious. So I went Electrum there. So I have no idea how I come up with this stuff. But I do. It flows out of me like other things. But yeah, watch Monty Python. It's hugely influential. You know, I mean, pretty much it. And I don't know really what came first. If it was it or SNL. I think it was actually first.
Yeah,
SNL
definitely.
in the United States. Roughly the same time period, but I think SNL was a little bit after. But, you know, I mean, the whole modern sketch comedy draws back to there. And then many comedians, even like, you know, South Park people did a tribute on the 50th anniversary. They did the Dead Parrot sketch, a South Park version of it. And Jim Carrey has pointed out like parts that, you know, that have really influenced him. But the amount of influence they've had on comedy, the thing is probably not known.
the thing that's really funny is I was watching a thing on John Cleese not too long ago where he was interviewing, and he was basically saying that a lot of what they were doing in a vacuum. They thought it was fun and funny, but I mean, there was no internet. There was very little cross international media relations.
They just knew whether or not it got.
Well, they had no idea what they were doing was having the impact that it was having. And then when they started going, you know, to Canada and then into the United States,
they started doing the touring.
Well, yes. And they're like, people know the sketches by heart already. People are quoting things to us and shouting at us in the streets. They had no idea they were like astounded. And like, there were things that they did that when they were doing them on the stage, and by that I mean like when they were doing like the flying circus and they were doing, you know, not stage performances of it, but when they were shooting the television show and they're on a stage and people were like looking at them like people who are
insane.
But people that are working on the show, they were like, what is this? Like, what are you doing? And like some stuff that was very offensive. Like some of the stuff they did was, I was watching some flying circus. Well, here's the thing. Well, in the day that we live in now, a lot of things are more offensive now that were just commonplace funny then.
Yeah.
So I was rewatching some stuff, and actually I had discovered some things because I definitely have not watched all of it. And I found this huge, like, I guess you could call it a sketch, but it was kind of like a whole show. It was like a whole episode, I believe, of the Flying Circus, where it wasn't a bunch of sketches. It was one long like story, and it took place in medieval times, and it was hilarious. But they what's that?
The Holy Grail? No,
it wasn't the Holy Grail. It wasn't.
They have another one called Jabberwocky too.
I've never seen the Jabberwocky. It was not that though, because I'm aware of that. This was like it was short. It was longer than their sketches, but not movie. It was like a half hour. It was like they did one full episode on this one subject, you know. And it was really funny and had some very offensive stuff in it too, but it was also had some ridiculous silly stuff. I mean, it's classic Monty Python, and I was like, wow, I've never seen this before.
Like the thing that shifted was back then you made fun and you used humor to help normalize things that you loved, that you didn't think should be, you know, that you thought maybe they shouldn't be so funny as they were. But you know, today it's kind of flipped its head where, you know, if people were to bring humor the same way today, it would probably cause offense, you know, and people think they're being like an extreme right-wing group, you know, people might think, but they were just the opposite. And I don't know, like all their politics, but you know, socially, definitely very liberal. So.
One last comment on comedy. I was watching something where somebody was remarking on some real classic comedians, and they were like, always punch up. And I was like, what does he mean by that? And then he starts to explain that you don't choose a marginalized group to make fun of, or you don't choose a group of people that have already been put down and, you know, been, you know, oppressed, obviously. Like, you don't make fun of this group. You make fun of the things that are above. You make fun of the people in power, or, you know what I mean?
Punched up, but their approach was to come at it from the marginalized, you know, and so you could take it the other way, but it really was meant to make fun of people who disliked or didn't like marginalized groups. So whatever. That's
all right. Off the subject.
That's enough thoughts there. Exactly.
All right, guys. Thanks for
5 rules.
Monty Python. Thanks for listening.
Yes. Go and prepared though. Yeah, bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the World Builders Anvil.
We would love it if you would share the World Builders Anvil with 2 of your friends.
And so would they.
If they are unfamiliar with podcasts, then you get to introduce them to the wonderful world of podcasting.
Take them to Stitcher or iTunes, or best of all, just send them to our website, www.gardul.com.
That's GARDUL.com.
Now strike while the mithril's hot.